Have you ever wondered if you're doing better or worse than the average American Muslim when it comes to money? Maybe you're lying awake at night, thinking about your bank account balance and your zakat math, wondering if other brothers and sisters your age have more saved up than you do. Or perhaps you're scrolling through Instagram, seeing people from the masjid posting about their latest Umrah trip or brand new SUV, and you can't help but wonder how they afford it all. Well, today I'm going to pull back the curtain on the real financial reality of the average Muslim living in the US. And I guarantee some of these numbers are going to shock you. Some might make you feel a lot better about your situation, while others might be a serious wake-up call. Either way, by the end of this video, you'll have a crystal clear picture of where you stand financially compared to the rest of our community in this country. My name is Omar, and I help Muslims understand money, halal personal finance, and building real wealth. If you're interested in getting your finances on track and maybe even getting ahead of the anti-network, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if this information helps you out. Before we dive into these eye-opening statistics, let me ask you something. When you think about the average Muslim's financial situation, what comes to mind? Do you picture a doctor uncle quietly building wealth across 3 rental properties? Or do you imagine a brother basically living paycheck to paycheck after rent, halal groceries, and Sunday school tuition? The truth is, most of us have absolutely no idea what normal actually looks like in our community when it comes to money. We have assumptions based on what we see at Juma and what Auntie talks about at the Eid potluck, but the reality is often very different from what we imagine. Understanding these numbers isn't just about satisfying your curiosity, it's about giving you the information you need to make better decisions with your own money inside the halal frame. If you're trying to get in shape, you'd want to know what the average person weighs. If you're trying to improve your grades, you'd want to know how you compare. Money works the same way. When you understand where you stand compared to your community, you can make more informed choices about your spending, saving, zakat, and halal investing. So let's start with something that affects every single working Muslim in this country: income. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median weekly earnings for a full-time worker came in at just over $1,000, which works out to roughly $52,000 a year before taxes. We're talking about individual income here, not household. And median means half of workers earn more than this and half earn less. After federal taxes, state taxes, social security, and Medicare, that number shrinks to somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000 in take-home, depending on where you live. But here's the part that's specific to us. According to the ISPU American Muslim Poll 2025, 35% of Muslim households in the US earn $30,000 or less a year, compared with 20% of the general public, 19% of Catholics, and only 11% of Jews. That's a much bigger share of our community sitting at or below the bottom of the income distribution than the country at large. On the other end, only 24% of Muslim households earn $100,000 or more, which is on par with most other faith groups, but less than the 48% of Jewish households who earn that much. Even within our community, the disparities are striking. White Muslims are at 44%, earning $100,000 or more. Asian Muslims at 34%, Arab Muslims at 19%, and Black Muslims at just 7%. We are a bimodal community, heavy at the bottom, lighter in the middle, and a smaller upper tier than people assume. Now let's talk about retirement savings, because this is where a lot of American Muslims are in for a rude awakening. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey, the median American has $65,000 saved for retirement, and about 25% of Americans don't have a retirement account at all, zero. For those who do have something saved, people under 25 have a median of less than $2,000. The 25 to 34 64 age group has around $14,000. By 65 and older, the median climbs to $88,000. Here's the part you have to hear, because the ISPU data shows our community is significantly younger than the general public. Only 6% of American Muslims are retired, compared with 10 to 30% of other faith groups. That sounds like an advantage, and partly it is, because we have more compounding time. But it also means most American Muslims are still in the accumulation phase, and there's an under-discussed structural problem dragging on that accumulation. The default fund inside most US 401k plans is loaded with conventional bank stocks and interest-bearing bonds, so a meaningful share of our community either opts out of contributing entirely or contributes to a plan whose default options they can't fully use without compromising their deen. Sheikh Joe Bradford and the Zoya team have been pushing for years for Muslims to ask HR for a self-directed brokerage account option as a religious accommodation, but most American Muslims don't ask. The result? Even those of us who are in our peak earning years are quietly behind on retirement because the wrapper around the default vehicle isn't compatible with our values. If you retire with $88,000 and follow the traditional 4% withdrawal rule, you can pull out about $3,500 a year. That's less than $300 a month. Could you live on $300 a month in retirement, even with no mortgage and your kids financially independent? The honest answer is no. Speaking of Social Security, the Social Security Administration reports the average monthly benefit is around $1,550, or about $18,600 a year. Social Security is funded through general taxation, so receiving it isn't a riba issue. Most US scholars treat it as legitimate income, but $18,600 is the average benefit. And if you had years where you didn't work or earn little, your benefit could be significantly lower. Some American Muslims, especially first-generation immigrants who arrive later in their careers, may not have enough quarters of contribution to qualify for a meaningful benefit at all. Let's shift gears to spending. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, American households spend about $5,577 a month on average, or roughly $67,000 a year. The biggest chunk goes to housing at $1,885 a month, food at $691 a month, and transportation at $913 a month. For American Muslim households, there are several line items the BLS doesn't track that genuinely matter. Zabiha certified meat typically runs 20 to 40% above conventional meat in most US markets, which adds meaningful dollars to that $691 grocery line. Sunday or weekday Islamic school for 2 kids easily adds $400 to $800 a month. Sadaqah, which most practicing Muslims give monthly out of conviction, not obligation, adds another $50 to $300 depending on the household. Hajj fund contributions, because the average package from the US for 2026 runs $8,000 to $15,000 per person, according to multiple US-based travel operators, can add another $200 to $500 a month if you're saving over a 5-year horizon for the family. Stack all of those onto the BLS spending baseline, and the realistic monthly for American Muslim household trying to honor its obligations is closer to $6,500 to $7,500 a month, not $5,577. That gap is the silent margin that disappears every month, and nobody talks about it openly. There are also bigger episodic costs that don't show up in monthly averages but absolutely show up on the household balance sheet. Marriage. The Islamic Finance Guru team has documented modern Muslim wedding costs running from £41,000 to £77,000 in the UK, depending on the region and number of cultural events, with traditional walima additions adding roughly £15,000 on top. US figures vary wildly, but most American Muslim families realistically face combined nikah plus walima budgets in the $20,000 to $60,000 range when both sides contribute. Mahr, which is the bride's right and entirely between the couple, can range from a symbolic amount to substantially more depending on culture and family expectation. None of those costs make it into the BLS spending tables, but they absolutely shape your savings rate during the years you're funding them. Now let's talk credit scores, because this one has a Muslim-specific wrinkle most people don't see. According to Experian, the average FICO score in America is 715. Solid. The catch is that building a credit score requires using credit. The standard advice from every conventional source is to keep 1 or 2 credit cards open, use them for everyday purchases, and pay them off in full every month to build a long credit history. For Muslims who avoid credit cards entirely on principle, this can leave you with a thin credit file and a lower score, which then bumps up the profit rate you get offered when you eventually apply for a halal mortgage at Guidance, UIF, or post-merger riba. The workarounds exist. Authorize user status on a parent's old card to inherit the credit history. Secured cards used for one autopay subscription and paid in full each month. Credit builder loans through some credit unions. None of these is a ruling I can give you. The point is that for our community, the average FICO masks a real problem, and you have to engineer around it on purpose. Now let's get to the elephant in the room that hits our community especially hard. Credit card debt. The average US household carries over $9,000 in credit card debt at interest rates of 15% to 25% or higher. If you're paying 22% on $9,000, you're throwing away $1,980 a year just in interest. That's not financial bad luck, it's straight riba. The Quran addresses this category of transaction directly, and the warnings are explicit. And yet, according to multiple Muslim-focused finance writers, including the Islamic finance guru team, a significant share of American Muslim households carry rotating credit card balances, either because they didn't fully understand what compound interest meant when they signed up, or because they fell behind during a hard month and never caught up. There is no halal way to pay 22% interest on a clothes purchase from last December. The clean financial play and the clean halal play align here perfectly. Pay it off in full every month or don't use the card. If you're already carrying a balance, killing it becomes the highest priority financial move you make, ahead of investing, ahead of even halal mortgage saving, because no halal investment will ever return 22% guaranteed, and the spiritual cost is on a different ledger entirely. Now let's talk net worth, which is probably the best single number for measuring overall financial health. Net worth is what you own minus what you owe. According to the Federal Reserve, the median net worth for American households is about $122,000. By age, that breaks down to less than $14,000 for households under 35, $91,000 for 35 to 44, $168,000 for 45 to 54, $212,000 for 55 to 64, and $266,000 for 65 to 74. For an American Muslim household, your net worth is also your zakat-payable wealth base. Once your assets above debts cross the silver-based nisab, which in 2026 sits around $1,495 per SAPA USA and the American Muslim Community Foundation, and stay there for one full lunar year, you owe 2.5% in zakat. That changes the math meaningfully. The brother with $122,000 in net worth above debts owes roughly $3,050 in zakat each year, give or take depending on what's actually zakatable in his portfolio. That's not a tax, it's an obligation. And most American Muslims either underpay or skip it entirely because their wealth is parked in accounts they don't track carefully. The faraid implications also matter. When that net worth eventually transfers, it gets distributed per the inheritance shares laid out in the Quran, which means how you structure your accounts now, taxable brokerage with step-up bases, IRAs with named beneficiaries, retirement accounts that pass outside probate, directly affects how cleanly your wealth reaches your heirs in the proportions Allah specified. Most American Muslim households have not done this planning. Now, savings rates. The Bureau of Economic Analysis shows Americans save about 6% of their income after taxes. For most American Muslim households, the realistic functional savings rate after halal grocery premium, Islamic school, sadaqah, Hajj fund, and zakat reserve is even thinner. If you're already doing 6% of net income into halal savings and meeting your zakat obligation cleanly, you're already running ahead of the average household. If you can push to 10 to 15% explicitly toward halal investment vehicles like Wahed, screened ETFs, or a self-directed account holding Zoya screened equities, you're in the top decile of American Muslim financial behavior. Most experts suggest 10 to 15% specifically for retirement on top of whatever you're saving for other goals. For our community, layer on the Hajj fund, multiple thousands per family member, kids' Islamic education savings, and zakat reserve. The honest target is closer to 20% of gross when you add it all up, which is hard, but the framework matters. Now, retirement age. According to recent data, the average American retirement age is 61. Sounds great until you realize most people can't collect full Social Security until 67, leaving a 6-year gap to bridge. For American Muslim households, the picture is more complicated. ISPU's data showing only 6% of American Muslims are retired suggests our average retirement age is later, partly because we are a younger demographic on average, and partly because the retirement savings screening problem means many of us don't feel comfortable retiring on the mat we've built. Add the Hajj obligation, which most practicing Muslims want to perform while they still have the physical strength, and many brothers and sisters are working past 65 specifically to fund a multi-$1,000 Hajj package and still have enough left for ongoing zakat and sadaqah obligations. There's a cruel irony for anyone who delays Hajj too long. The package costs the same whether you're 50 or 70, but the physical capacity to actually perform the rites changes dramatically. The brother who waited until retirement to fund Hajj because he was prioritizing his halal mortgage in his 50s often arrives in Mecca physically unable to complete the obligation comfortably. The brother who funded it in his 30s and 40s while building wealth in parallel gets to perform it in good health and then have decades to compound the rest of his portfolio. The Social Security Administration says someone who reaches 65 can expect to live another 19 to 21 years. So if you do retire, you might have 25 years or more to fund. 25 years is a long time, longer than most people's careers up to that point. And the question specific to us, how many of those years are healthy enough for active worship and family time? How many of those years can you still contribute meaningfully through teaching, mentoring, masjid involvement? The math says start early and screen ruthlessly. This is why understanding these statistics isn't just about satisfying curiosity. It's about recognizing that the average American Muslim's approach to money isn't working very well. When 35% of our households earn under $30,000, when our community-wide retirement savings is still hampered by halal screening defaults nobody fixed, when $9,000 in credit card debt is straight riba, something is structurally wrong with the picture. But here's the good news, and this is why I wanted to share these numbers with you. Once you know what average looks like in our community, doing better becomes a clear and achievable choice. Doing better doesn't require some magical formula or secret knowledge. If you're consistently saving more than 6% of your income into halal vehicles, you're already ahead. If you're avoiding credit card debt entirely, you're way ahead, and you're staying clean of riba while you do it. If you understand what you're investing in line. You've actually screened it through Zoya or Halal, and you're contributing regularly to a Wahed account or self-directed IRA, you're lapping the field in our community. If you're paying your zakat cleanly every Ramadan and tracking your zakatable wealth above debts, above the nisab line, you're already operating at a level most American Muslims aspire to, but never reach. The reality is that most of these statistics are achievable to beat with basic discipline and a halal-aware framework. You don't need to be a tech executive or inherit money. You just need to be more intentional than the average member of our community. Think about it this way. If the average household is spending $5,577 a month, and you can figure out how to live comfortably on $4,800, you freed up almost $10,000 a year for halal savings, screened equity contributions, sadaqah, and the zakat reserve. Do that consistently for a few decades, and you'll be in a completely different financial league than your peers. And frankly, more capable of supporting the masjid, family, and community than people who out-earn you on paper. Earn a bit more than $52,000 a year, save more than 6%, avoid credit card debt, screen your investments, contribute regularly to a halal account, and pay zakat on time, and you'll retire with significantly more than $88,000 and significantly more peace than the average. What I find most interesting about all of this is how these numbers reveal the gap between what American Muslims say they want and what they actually do. Everyone says they want financial security. Everyone says they want to give generous sadaqah and fund Hajj for their parents and leave a meaningful faraid inheritance. Everyone says they want to stop worrying about money, but the average behavior in our community doesn't match these goals. Maybe that's because most of us don't actually know what average looks like for American Muslims specifically. Maybe we assume everyone else has their financial act together because the closing photo they posted on Instagram looked nice. Maybe we know we should be doing better, but don't know where to start, or think it's too late to make a difference. If you're watching this and some of these statistics hit a little too close to home, don't panic. The fact that you're here, learning and trying to understand your financial situation already puts you ahead of most. Most people never even take the time to figure out where they stand or what they need to do differently. Use these numbers as motivation, not as an excuse to give up. If you're 35 with less than $14,000 in net worth, you have work to do, but you also have 30 years or more to compound it. And if you're already doing better than these averages in some areas, don't get complacent. Maybe you have a solid credit score and no credit card debt, but your retirement savings are stuck in a default 401k fund you've never properly screened. Maybe you're great at saving, but it's all sitting in a checking account earning nothing because you were waiting for the perfect halal vehicle. The bottom line is this: these financial statistics of the average American Muslim should be eye-opening, but they should also be empowering. When you know what normal looks like, you can decide whether you want to be normal or whether you want to be better than that. Personally, I think you deserve better than retiring at 65 with $88,000, no Hajj completed, and skipping zakat because the cash isn't liquid. You deserve better than carrying credit card debt that's actively haram. You deserve the peace of mind that comes from having your halal financial house in order. As always, the math is the math. The scholarly views on specific products and contracts genuinely differ, and your final ruling on credit cards, halal mortgages, retirement structures, or any other piece of this has to come from a scholar you trust who knows your specific situation. These statistics show where the average American Muslim ends up. They don't have to define where you end up. Use them as a starting point, not a finish line.